Yeah, we're live. It is 6:43, so I'm a little bit early. I wanted to get on. Been trying to get on for a long time because actually I did find myself a new manually adjustable camera. So I just need to get it installed. It came in the mail. So I'll be able to adjust that so that the thing won't zoom in and out. It gets wigged out by the green screen and all various things. So I'll be able to fix that. Because anybody that's been here more than once has seen me play with the camera. I don't know why it doesn't just stay happy and stay where it is, but hopefully with a manual adjustable camera, that won't auto zoom in and out and it'll cure that problem. So that's what I'm hoping to do. So I have to get rid of the autofocus camera and then put this new one on. So that would be cool. But tonight I don't want to talk about that. Tonight I want to talk about the video that I'm done editing and I need to load it now. It is the all aluminum LH6 junkyard motor. And as we see, if we take a look back, the L33 has been amazing. That's the one that we made 511.8 horsepower. Yes, we're carrying it out to the decimal point now. That's what it's done very well. It went on the engine dyno. It worked perfect. Everything seems to work on it. And now after doing heads and cam and intake manifold, it makes lots and lots of power. That's the kind of wrecking yard adventure that you want. You want to go to the wrecking yard, stumble upon an aluminum motor that somebody hasn't grabbed already, and buy it for the same price that you would get your run-of-the-mill LR4 or LM7 iron, 4.8 or 5.3. And then have it work fantastic, and then have it do lots and lots of testing and work on the dyno and run lots of videos and make lots of power. But that doesn't always happen. And as illustrated by the LH6. So I'm going to put the video up tonight, or it will go up early tomorrow morning. New Zealand's in the house. Kiwi's in the house. I'm going to put that up. And it did not go exactly like the L33. The LH6 was not the same. It looked pretty because we were able to steam clean it off and stuff. So I had high hopes for it because, it looked good, but internally it was not great. So the video is about me taking it apart and finding out what's wrong with it. And then telling you guys how I'm going to fix it. What it means is I get to build a motor. So obviously there is something wrong with it, but I get to build a motor and not just run it as another junkyard motor. Not that I mind that. I like those. But I also like occasionally putting other things in it, forged rods and forged pistons in this case, because long ago, the guys from Summit Racing were nice enough to, when they were first coming out, it's been that long, I think, with their Pro LS stuff, which I recommend all the time to people, because my thing is that people want to know, well, what's the best forged piston? I'm like, look, you're trying to make 700 horsepower. You could just do that with the thing that you already have. You don't need to have the best metallurgical forged piston ever devised by man to put in your 5.3 to run it on the street at 700 horsepower. That's not necessary. You can do that with a stock cast piston with ring gap and be happy with it. So anything from there, so I look at it like here, we know that these things will run over and over and over and over and over again at like 1,000 horsepower. There are guys out with the right tune going out and making endless passes like this. So I figure any sort of forged piston and rod, especially because one of those is going to break. It's probably going to be the rod, but a rod or a piston is what you would eventually hurt just from power. That's assuming all of the other things are right. And 99.9% of the time, people do not get there. People do not break something. Oh, I made too much power. No, you made too much detonation. You lost an injector. You had too much timing in it. You overspun the motor. You didn't have oil pressure. Whatever all of the other things are that go wrong with this, they're usually that. And they're not, look, I made pass after pass after pass, and this thing eventually just hurt itself because we made too much power. I see people say that a lot. I don't actually see people do that a lot. And even on mine, even my Big Bang motor, like the Gen 4 motor, I'm not convinced that was what caused that damage. We know that did, but what would have happened if I would have had 2 degrees less timing in it and then had more boost on it? Would it have not done that? Again, lots more testing is necessary for that. But my point is, for most people, if we can get away with so much on the stock rod and piston assembly, which we can on lots and lots of motors, not just the LS, but if we can get away with that on the stock stuff, imagine what we could do with any sort of forged piston. So let's say the forged piston is 10% stronger or 50 or 100 or 300% stronger, whatever the number is. How are you going to get to that level? You're not going to do that with a 700 horsepower motor or an 800 or even a 1200 horsepower motor. You're not going to be at the limit of those components, the structural limit of those components. You'll be at the limit of something else way before that happens. And then with the cool thing is that if you put forged rods and pistons in, you're going to get to the limit of something else besides those before you get to the limit of those. Those are now checked off the list. So now what is it? Is it the deck thickness? Is it the block movement? Is it the mains move? Is it the factory crankshaft? It's probably something else. And I get those questions a lot. Well, what's the best forged piston? What's the best connecting rod? And it takes, unfortunately, it takes time to get through to the question that they actually want to ask. Look, just say you want to make 700 horsepower and they'll tell you how to make 700 horsepower. It's really very easy. There's all these like qualifying questions, like we're doing this, crazy bird mating dance. Everyone's like bouncing around, and then they finally like, hey, look, here's what needs to happen. So on the LH6, we'll be able to put it back together with a new crankshaft, because the crankshaft's not good. So spoiler alert. And I have forged rods, I have forged pistons, and they're forged Summit Pro LS rods, and then there are forged dish pistons. So it's going to be low compression or lower compression, which is fine with me. It's not something that I would choose. Had my choice, I would run flat top pistons probably in it, just because it's already going to be sub 10-1 on a 5.3, and that's what this will be. And these are only 20 or 30 over, I think. So they're not even a big bore. So we still have plenty of structure left in the cylinder. So all of that, I think, will work out good. And then I have lots of other stuff, because the whole complete motor is there. Everything else looked like it was in good shape. The 799 heads, the camshaft, which we wouldn't use anyway because it's a DoD camshaft. The lifters actually looked like they were in good shape. And the intake manifolds is a Trailblazer SS, NBSS, whichever one you want to talk about. It's one of those. It has everything's there. It has the coil packs, all the sensors, the drive-by-wire throttle body, all of that stuff is there. So it's a complete motor. The one thing I don't like is I'm not a big fan of that particular oil pan. So we'll probably get rid of that and replace it with something that's, at the very least, it would get a truck pan and pickup. But maybe a Holly or something like that. Maybe even I'll do a chassis specific pan, just so that it all looks nice and looks nice and new and fancy and stuff. So we'll do that. And then I'm also doing the one that will follow that is actually a DoD AM FM conversion. How to get rid of that? How to get rid of these big lifters. And then what you have to do, what things you have to plug and what covers you have to use and all that. And if you're doing a cam swap, because most people that are doing a cam upgrade on the motor, like the LH6, which has that, I want to show them how to get rid of it. I haven't done a video like that. I know that there are some out there, but I haven't done one. So I wanted to go through step by step, talk about the different options that you have of basically plugging the what are essentially bleed holes for the oil pressure for the lifter, so that they can deactivate the lifter. So we'll get to talk about that in the DoD video. So that will be good. As I kind of expected, given the response when I first mentioned it, the AMR 500, the little mini supercharger, is that video is doing very well. People seem to like it. I still get comments on, hey, why didn't you eventually just run the boost into the motor? Yeah, that would be good. Why didn't you run a little T3 turbo on a 800 horsepower big block? Because it doesn't work. That's why. And I don't think it even would have done anything. I need to look at the power output down low and see if there was any spot where the blower would have been making enough airflow to support it. Like, would it have been okay at 2000 RPM? Would it would it have been not, would it have been spinning? Would the blower been spinning fast enough to make enough airflow to allow the motor to make its normal airflow, or make a little bit more, and then it would just, go all to heck and not make any more power, because that's what happens. But a lot of people, and this is one of the reasons that I did this video, is because a lot of guys they don't understand the situation, and they're, maybe they're getting information from the internet, which is a lot of times terrible, or from their buddies, which a lot of times is terrible. They're getting information, and they think that they understand how superchargers work. Oh, the superchargers add more air and they add boost, and then you make more power. That's great, except there are different size superchargers. And the different size superchargers supply a different amount of air and therefore boost to different size motors. And so you can't just take like this little AMR 500 blower is not going to do what a top fuel blower does, because they're different sizes and they're designed for different applications. And you can't just universally have a supercharger on anything and have it work the way that you want it to. And this was the case. And even when I explained to them that, hey, we're just spinning the blower to see how much airflow potential it has, so then we know what motor we can actually put it on. For some guys, that doesn't compute. It only computes that, hey, you're spinning the blower. Why are you wasting all that boost? Run the boost into something so that we're making power. Yeah, we will, but just not a 150 horsepower blower on a 440 horsepower motor. That's just not going to work very well. So let's see. Gotta get a poll. So probably could. Okay, should I buy another AMR 500 supercharger and run twins on a 4 or 6 cylinder? And we're going to put a mild 4 or 6 cylinder, because there's some that make lots and lots of power. Because two of them obviously is better than one. Big house. How do you know I don't have a big house? So if somebody points for somebody, how do you know I don't have a big house? If you can tell me what that quote is from, I will send you a free camshaft. So somebody tell me what that quote is from. You can't look it up on the internet. Like, that's going to stop people from doing that. Maine's in the house. Wrong cam. That's right. And Dinosaur. New Zealand. We're going to get a shirt like that. I've had these made. My wife actually made them, but I need to have shirts done. Perfect person to listen to while I'm sitting here gapping your rings for the 408 stroker. Nice. How are you doing the gapping, Jay? Are you using do you have a file and a vise? Do you have the ring gapper like we do? Car Peeps, Motor Geeks, Burns is in the house. You didn't have Amazon? I have Amazon. Anyone have experience with an 8 horsepower, 8-speed trans? What's an 8 horsepower, 8-speed trans? Talked to a guy at Amazon. He was talking about his blown up 5.3. Don't know what happened to it. I have heard lately that the new 3.6 twin turbo Ford engines are blowing up due to oil starvation. Somebody wants a knife edge crank test. A knife edge crank on an LS is not going to show very much because it already has a really good windage tray. 700 horsepower and a 5-horsepower Briggs and Stratton. It'd be hard to get that thing to work. 5.3 engines blowing out rear seals. Mechanic told me the other day. I've have a lot of experience with LS motors, and I haven't seen that. He tips on getting the turbo off of an 09 Audi A4. There's such a thing as a turbo piston. There are turbo pistons. Their manufacturers call them turbo pistons, but there is not a piston ever devised by man that has a way of recognizing whether or not it has a turbo on it. Any piston that you have will work with a turbo. Space lasers, exactly. Yes, kind of, exactly. Still waiting on the LSA test. That would be nice. The only problem is I'm missing an LSA, but I think that Church might have one for me. They have nitrous pistons. They have NA pistons, just like camshafts, nitrous cams. And somebody told me that he had a nitrous EFI cam. I'm like, wow, that's oddly specific. Let's see. I'm watching for OM606 videos. Is that the diesel one? One bolt left. Good. More big block 396 is coming. Yep. Twin AMR 500s on a 3800. Well, that would be enough to make some boost and some power. What happened to the Richard Storff working combinations? I don't know what you mean by that. Take the rings to Gabbleby. Good. No, the model is HP. Okay, it comes in BMWs. Okay. Boost novice. So you want to see twin M90s too? Actually, and I should take him up on this offer. Tom Demuse, the guy that sent the adapter plate so we could run that Ford blower on the LS, said that he would help me with getting twins on there. I think for science sake, one on a low horsepower 4-cylinder would be good. People do want to see it run, actually, so I should put it on something, but two of them would give us a little bit more range. Sean, of course I am. That's the story of my life. Do you notice any difference on timing chain slack, hot versus cold? If I read that the chain was slack, it will go away when it's warmed up on LS engines. They won't. There will always be slack on every LS engine that I've ever taken apart, whether it's new or old or has 1 million miles on it, or it's brand new and has never been run. There's always slack in the timing chain. There are ways that you could get rid of that, but all of the factory stuff has lots of slack in it. But that doesn't go away when it's running. Sean's feeling fiery tonight, so. Was looking up rumors of the fast intake under boost, and of course, you had the information. Yeah. I'm told, I've never seen it done. I actually wanted to fly back when they told me this. I wanted to fly back and see what their test rig was, but I wanted to test it so that we could see. we wanted to make end caps and everything and close everything off and then pressurize it and see how much pressure the fast would take. They're telling me that they've gone over 40 psi. I've gone to 28 psi on a turbo application on the dyno. So we've done that. I know it will go there. They're telling me that they pressure test them to 40. So it's a lot. It's a lot more than people think. Oh, those fast, for whatever reason, somebody somewhere said, "Oh, those fast leak air when you run them under boost." Like, no, they don't. You may have been leaking air somewhere, but it wasn't from the manifold unless you didn't tighten all the bolts. Richard, how much horsepower would it take for a 63 Ford Galaxy to break free the tires during while doing 60 miles an hour? Well, there's an awful lot that could go into that. So you'd have to look at what is the resistance from the tires. So what is the tire pressure? What is the tire compound? What is the surface like? You know, how much traction do you actually have there? And then the motor horsepower or torque would be one thing, and then the gear multiplication would be the other thing, because you're multiplying that, obviously. Are you going uphill? Was it wet? Was it slick? Did you have water? You know, there are lots of things. Meth through the throttle body and through the rotors, or drill and tap the blower hat to spray down the ports on an LSA. For me, I would like to see water meth injection or water injection or just meth injection, individual ports going into the cylinders. And I'd like to see it after the blower. It will be beneficial blowing before the blower in terms of temperature, but it also displaces the airflow. It's probably going to displace the airflow on the other side as well. And I've tried it on both sides of the blower. I did that way back when we were running the little Eaton M45s on the Honda applications that Oscar Jackson used to do. And so we ran an ERL water injection, and we ran it before the blower, and then we ran it after the blower, and everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, it's going to displace all the air, and it's going to, you know," it made exactly the same power in both positions for us. So that's the information I have. So you're saying it's a wave piston. So I would have to have somebody explain to me why the piston design would not be beneficial on an NA application, and then why it would be beneficial on a turbo application. I'm putting together a mild small block Ford with 165s, a 270 cam. I need lifters. What brands are people finding reliable? You're doing a hydraulic roller lifter, right? Hydraulic roller lifters don't have a problem, especially on a Ford. Car originally had a big block, a 390 dual quad setup. That should, if it's a good 390, was it a stock 390 or did he have it hopped up at all? A 390 with a 4-speed and gears should have enough to do that, especially if it had original polyglass tires or something on it and that were not probably very wide. Bill, I would agree with that. I would agree that there definitely are pistons for direct injection and port injection. How much horsepower can a stock transmission 2-valve hold? Like for a 2-valve 4.6 Ford motor? I don't know about the transmissions. If it's a T5, not a lot according to most people, but I don't know about the automatic. Frank, that information here on the cam choice. That information came from a highly reputable LS builder in Missouri. I was just trying to justify which induction EFI method for a dry plate. Yeah, you're worrying about the wrong thing on your deal. You're worrying about whether to inject the, well, you're combining two things. You're worried about injecting the fuel on a carbureted intake manifold at the flange, at the carburetor flange, or down at the port. And you're wondering what's going to work best with nitrous. The nitrous isn't part of that equation. You should worry about which one of those is going to make more power, NA, and then you're just adding nitrous to that. And in my opinion, the one that will make the most power, at least it has shown that in the dyno stuff, is that if you add the fuel at the carb flange and not at the port, it makes more power. There's less tuning available with fuel injection, because that's what you're talking about, using like the 4-hole or the 8-hole or the 8 injector throttle body stuff. You can do some tuning with that, and you could tune it, I think, better than a carburetor, but you can't do individual port tuning, individual cylinder tuning, which you can with port injection, which is good. But ultimately, because of the charge cooling, one of them makes a little bit more power than the other. Quite honestly, the amount of difference that you'd see between those two things, you probably could add that much more nitrous and make up for it, so it's not going to be an issue. And then if you are able to do individual cylinder tuning, especially individual cylinder air fuel is good, but also maybe timing for running lots of nitrous, that ultimately might be more beneficial. Sean, the only diesel I have was a Cummins turbo diesel in a Ram 3500 that we did a bunch of chassis dyno stuff did, but not an engine dyno. But that doesn't make any difference. That doesn't change my knowledge about pistons and and whether they have pistons for direct injection and port injection. And that's why like I said, I want to understand. I've never seen a piston that is a turbo piston other than the ones they call turbo pistons, which were just low compression pistons for gas applications. If there's something about a piston that makes it a turbo specific piston, but it also doesn't do exactly the same thing NA, then I want to know about that. Yeah, wrong cam and wrong piston. It's all good. Neil, 2,900 pounds, 80s, S10, 9-inch rear, turbo 400, 4,500 stall, 454 drag race build, suggestions for an engine build, 496. Oh, the BR300 cam, 781s, bigger cam for drag race use, aluminum heads. Yeah, I don't know what your budget is, but there's lots better choices than a 781 head and that BR300 cam. I just use it because it was, for me, it's kind of a middle of the road cam. Not necessarily that it's a specific blower cam or turbo cam, because we've used it NA and with a turbo and with a blower with nitrous, and it does what a camshaft does. It does what it does NA, and then you add that other stuff to it. 781s, there's obviously lots better heads than that, and having an aluminum head, I think, is probably a good idea. The ProMax stuff that we've tested has worked well. Obviously, I normally recommend an airflow research for a guy that really wants to make power. A 496 is a good idea. It makes more than a 454. I don't know what kind of RPM you want to run, but there are lots bigger and better camshafts than that. I mean, we've put, 275, 285 kind of camshafts in, or even bigger ones than that, and they make a lot more power than that BR300 does. Working with the Jaguar inline 6 mid 60s 4.2 liter. I'm familiar. In fact, I did try to buy one, an E-Type, and then somebody bought it from under me. You should be able to run boost on the Jaguar engine. Let's see. Got a 2-valve Mustang. Let's see. No, I scrolled past it. Single torque arm big enough for a big block 496. Anyone seen the bigger 91 millimeter superchargers actually available? I don't know about their new one. I haven't tested it. The other one is, you know, I think it's a 750 horsepower blower, but I don't know about the newer one. World's greatest hand model. Okay, 2-valve Mustang holds 700 to the stock transmission. I don't know about the transmission. I don't know how strong that's going to be. Big car, so most likely over 400 horsepower. 78 Camaro would bury the needle at 130. Must have had a lot of gear in it to go that fast. If it was a 3, well, even if it's a 3-speed or 4-speed, the gear is still going to be 1-to-1. I don't know what rear end it had. For my curiosity, I'd like to see data for too small of a turbo. So we did that. If you take a look at the turbo on when we ran the GT45 on the big block, that's a pretty good example. Take a look at how high the back pressure was trying to run that turbo on a big block. It still works. It has, you know, amazing response and still makes boost and makes power up until it can't support that flow level anymore. A series on inline sixes would be interesting. I have a few of them. I have the RB motor. I have the slant 6. I have the 292 Chevy. So I've already run the 4200. And so, you know, there'll be some of those. Richard, everyone thinks it running more than 500 horsepower will split the block on the 302. T5s take more work. It's worth to hold more than 400, but you can spend to make them work. Yeah, I mean, it's probably better. Most guys just go to a different transmission on those. Although I had really good luck with my T5. I had 85,000 miles on it. And then we also used it in the Bridgestone Supercar Series behind the Vortex supercharged car. And we were road racing it. But I wasn't abusing it. I wasn't power shifting it. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. Top ring high to reduce crevice volume on NA. Top ring low to control heat on turbo piston. Yeah, I understand what those things are. But my point is that, and if you run a junkyard LS, especially one with the ring gap and run boost on it, it wasn't designed as a turbo piston, and yet it works. Like seeing 89 turbo T-Bird with a K series in the big turbo. I just picked up an LH6, just honed it and gapped the rings to 30 and 32. Okay, that's more than enough on that bore size. I have it to the side for when my stock Gen 3 motor decides to go. I trapped 45 on it, 145. That's getting with the program. Donnie, that's what happens. It won't blow up. When the ones that you don't really care about, like that was the first 2 big bang motors, and especially the 4.8, because we thought it was going to blow up. We thought it was going to blow up immediately. And yet we just kept turning up and up and up. And Guess my concern at this point with going with a fuel sleeve at the carb flange, do you suggest a legitimate carb or the Holy Stealth EFI? I don't like the 4-hole throttle body EFI setups. Now, Ish and other people and Eric have told me they get them to work and they work fine. I haven't seen them go on something and work and be repeatable. Like you make a run and then you don't touch anything and you make another run and it does something different. So I don't like that. If we run a carburetor and we make a run and then we stop and then make another run, it does exactly the same thing every time. But those 4-hole throttle bodies, I'm not a fan of. But that's just me. So you don't have to take that as gospel. There are probably lots of people that are making it work. And so if it works just fine. But like I said, what you're worried about more than that is where you're injecting the fuel. Dan, what's the topic tonight? What is our poll? Our poll is, should I buy another AMR and run twins? And then I was talking about the LH6. $63.5 XL. I like those. I like those cars. 2.2 liter twin AMR charge. The thing that the idea that I like more is I like a compound turbo and blower, an AMR on the little Sprint motor. A V-twin lawnmower engine. Spicy chat tonight. Yeah, people are fired up. That's okay. I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with people throwing stuff out. You know, sometimes people are drinking and doing whatever and they get all fired up. That's okay. Friend in the Air Force had an Olds Omega 350 rocket engine. Cool car. The noise alone on a daily isn't worth it. Yeah, people ask me about putting solid. Oh, should I put a solid roller on my LS? I'm like, no, you shouldn't do that. You're not trying to run at the nth degree of the drag racing circles. You have a car that you're going to take to the drag strip occasionally. Neil, 7,000 RPM is an easy RPM for a 496. You don't have to worry about the bottom end. You have to worry about the camshaft and the springs and that stuff. The other thing you have to be concerned with running that engine speed on a 496 is it's going to take a lot of camshaft and cylinder head to make power up there, but more of the oiling system. You're going to have a good pan and windage tray and pump and all of that to make it work. The whine of the AMR 500 says, nope, it does. It's not quiet. That's for sure. Just run a sequential turbo setup with intake and exhaust, throttles off of an eBay and control them with your aftermarket ECM, best of both worlds. We know that would be better. We know that turbos would be the way to go. In fact, just a single turbo on that motor would be the way to go. But that's not the point. The point is I have an AMR and I already have a turbo. In fact, I have a couple of turbos for that that we would run. And I have done compound turbos on it, not sequential, but we've done compound turbos on, or I did a compound turbo setup using I don't think I did. I think I did with a Volkswagen turbo. Go-to cam for a stock bottom end roller 351 Windsor turbo setup that fits without piston and valve clearance just before 6,000. Then it has to be the Extreme Energy 274 cam. Let's see. 292 Chevy dyno stock head and lump port mod to get rid of the center stud. Yeah. What's it really worth? I don't know. People tell me that it definitely increases flow, but I not seen a direct back-to-back test on them. Donnie, when you pulled it apart, it already had high rain gap. I don't normally see that even on junkyard stuff that has 250,000 miles on it. Shadow Ops, wrench. And the updates on the marathon. Actually, I did work last night on. You can see. You'll see here. This see. Oh, that's got to be a. I didn't even notice that. That's a demolition derby car because it's all smashed up. That's awesome. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, I was doing testing last night. I have my Hot Wheels. I was playing with Hot Wheels last night. Don't judge me. And I was doing some racing, which is what we're going to be doing for the 24-hour live feed. Every red light, it is a drag strip. That's right. With the Austin or with the AMR work on an Austin A Series 1275, well, how much power is the 1275 making? Frank, happy to help. MIG, TIG, stick, plasma, arc. I don't have any. I'm not selling any merchandise right now. You've seen Gale Banks' Pike Peak Diesel where he ran the blower before the turbos. I don't understand it, but I'm sure he had a good reason. Gale's a pretty sharp guy. I'd be interested to see why that was happening, but that was on a diesel, right? I've been looking for a long time for the dyno test. Are you talking about the lump port thing? I went down the rabbit hole on that inline 6-cylinder stuff when I first got that motor and looked around for lots of data. I mean, obviously everybody swears by it, especially the people that do that and do that modification. But like you're saying, I haven't seen back-to-back testing on it. And what I would like to see, obviously, because we would have to have that to actually judge it, you'd have to have testing on that on a variety of different applications. Because let's say that they increase the airflow, because this is a two cylinders are sharing the port, so it's like a Siamese port. And the problem is that let's say that you increase the flow by 25% from doing this modification and porting it and stuff. Let's say that you did that and you put it on an otherwise stock motor. Well, maybe it already had enough flow for the stock motor. Then you put it on a mildly modified motor, something with a cam and a header, maybe an intake on it. And then it did it gain something on that? And then would it gain even more on something that actually could use it? It's high compression, more RPM, shorter runner manifold, bigger camshaft, more compression, all that stuff. And then we go, okay, well, just like with a ported head on an LS, should you port your LS3 head? No, you shouldn't do that, because if you just put a camshaft in the one that you already have, you're still not using all of the head that's available from the stock head. So that's not where you should likely be focusing your attention on. So it might be a situation like that, but I don't know because I haven't done the testing on it. Any words of wisdom on the Skip White stuff? I haven't personally tested Skip White stuff. If our enforcers are decent for 454 or 427 build, the AFR heads are good for the big block. Even the enforcers are. And if Skip White uses that same casting, then I would assume that they would be good too. As long as you make car sounds. The track that I have is 6 wide, and it does make car sounds. And it tells you who won and everything. It's pretty cool. And the dogs loved it. Although they don't love it. If anybody saw the Instagram post that I made today, the two puppies, especially, not Milo so much, the two puppies are very enamored of Attenborough and watching Our Planet or Big Planet or whatever it is. And so they jump up on the thing and they're watching the TV. They're watching the albatross. They're watching the tiger shark. They're watching the polar bears. They're watching all of that stuff. And they're just fascinated. And Attenborough's voice is, he's the man. Well, I took apart my 5.3 with 280,000 miles. Ring gap was 16 to 18. Still cross hatching. That's the thing. The ones that I've taken apart, the cylinder, there's no ridge at the top at all. It's still factory fresh. And a lot of times we do see crosshatch in them, and most of the time I see very, very low ring gap. I don't see ones that are, because what's wearing out? Is the ring wearing out enough to do that? Yes, all around that gap was a pretty ugly motor. No clue on the mileage. It's been on an 80 millimeter, 21 pounds, E85, 4 years, 16 PSI, trapped 145, LS9 head gaskets, shiny head studs. Nice. That's all good stuff. 21 PSI. Are you at the limit of that 80 millimeter? I would suppose. I don't know what the rest of the thing is. Is it a cammed, base motor? As much as I built it to, but only 100 horsepower. But that's okay. If that's the 1275, then you want, for that AMR 500, you want something that's 100 horsepower or less NA to put it on. Butcher, I can brake traction on my single cab 0159 Dakota at 80, just hitting the gas. Is it a turbo 5.9 making 335 to the tire? Is it making lots of torque? Theoretical engines are way cheaper to build. That should be a shirt, shouldn't it, Neil? 78 Camaro blew the doors off my Monte Carlo SS with a fresh rebuilt engine. Found out after that the pistons were installed, maybe the rings incorrectly. So were the pistons installed incorrectly? Were they upside down? What was the problem with them? And did they have valve reliefs on both sides so that you didn't have piston to valve clearance if they were installed like that? Maybe it was the piston flip. Are the 11Rs or FR Renegade still the best option for stock bottom and small block Ford? Yeah, but it wouldn't be a Renegade. Oh, it would be a Renegade. Yeah, a 185 or a 165 versus the 11Rs. Either one of those would be the ones that I would go to for if you're trying to make power with the 302 or 351. The old AC Cobras. So a big block one, probably not a small block one though, right, Dan? We sim race to get ready for endurance racing. I know guys that do that in open wheel cars, and it's really pretty amazing now. The level that they have of the simulations now. He what my buddy Gary brought me over and showed me the thing that he's racing. He's got he's got the seat and the pedals and all, the whole thing like you're sitting in a car. But when you look around, you could see the umbrella girls walking around and stuff. It's really pretty crazy. How much power do long tube headers add versus LS swap headers? What is an LS swap header, or should that be stock exhaust manifolds? Maybe I have videos up on headers versus stock exhaust manifolds and shorty headers. 862s, Gen 353, VS Racing 80, ProFlow intake. I don't have a turbo back pressure sensor in it yet, so I don't know about 1-to-1. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about the back pressure. I don't know. That's a T4 110. You're not going to, on that size motor, you're not going to get to the back pressure point. $69 $454. As soon as I add water, it goes straight to the oil pan. That's not good. So you have water leaking in somewhere. I would look at the easy stuff, and the thing that you kind of want it to be is I would look at intake leaks. So I'd look at where the water passage is for the intake, and is it going into the like lifter valley and stuff. You don't want it to be obviously a cracked block or something like that, or if you just put it together like a head gasket it'd be really weird for something like that to happen, but not unusual for an intake gasket with where the water passage is to have been hurt or dislodged or be out of position or something like that. That's something that could happen. And I don't know about Oldsmobiles, but that's universal for all of these kind of V8 engines. 427 dual 4-barrel. First gen Ford Lightning with a turbo. Yeah, that should spin the tires. Is 32 top ring gap on a 4030 bore too much for a boost? No, we ran that on the Big Bang stuff. Can you run a single turbo on one side of the exhaust? Yeah, the factory has done it. Saab did it, and I tried it on a big block, but didn't get it to work. And you could. I just don't know why you would. Big ring gap, big catch can, small ring gap, small, big trash can. Can you run a turbo on only one bank? Yeah, we went over that. Good. Where's our poll? 74% saying yes. Should I buy another AMR? So we're going to end our poll there because it's going to be time to go. KD, so you had oil in the pan, your tunnel around 468, turned out the machine shop tapped into my water passage. Where was the hole? Where was it transferring water? And JB Weld does work pretty good. Oh, dude, Dan, he had Cobras, a Lola, a Thunderbolt. Tim, I water get through the timing cover on a 455. Kurt used to run single-sided turbos on big tracks years ago. The Cadillac LMP car didn't do it on one side, but they had a V8 and ran only 6 of the exhaust pipes to feed the turbo, and the other 2 ran naturally aspirated or without feeding the turbo. Richard, have you ever experimented with blocking off silence ports on a PD blower? I haven't. Guys, when they port them, usually change that, but I'd never seen anybody eliminate them. Rear intake hole, driver's side. Oh, okay. So did they drill and tap it and just went all the way through? I've heard the backing plate on the water pump. That's where it's going to start. See, there's guys here that are Oldsmobile savvy. C10, LS swap, bed, or rear mount turbo setup. Yeah, are you asking which one of those you should do? You can do a rear mount, and that works. And then just make your depending on the length of the tubing, you want to size it down a little bit for response, but it all works. What upgrade can I do in my 4.8? It depends on what you want to do. You could do a tune, you could do headers, you can do a camshaft, but almost all the headers and the tune will definitely help, and they won't hurt low speed power. But a camshaft will hurt low speed power typically. But then you can also do gears or a converter. So on Eaton's website, they tend to block out the ports that are going all out. They say the only place there to try to make the blower noise compliant. Okay, so they're just. I didn't know that. I didn't know that that was a noise thing only. So the armor will be better on my 1098A series. It only has 60th horsepower. Yeah, it will support somewhere between, I think, 150 and 200 horsepower. Probably more to the 150 side than the 200 side, but that's how much power I think it will support. On a 60 horsepower motor, you don't have to spin it nearly as fast, but it would definitely work on that. But I also think it would work on 100, because if you have a 100 horsepower motor and it makes 150, it's added 50%. And I think that I'm pretty sure it will do that. Did you see Freiburg use a transcooler to cool fuel temps? Yeah, we did that on our big block when we were towing back in, I don't know, 90. Shoot, when was that? 93 or 94, I think. Because we were getting we were getting vapor lock. And so we ran a cooler, we ran the fuel up through a cooler and then into the carburetor, and that works. But you don't have to worry about it. I don't think you'd see much of a change in discharge temperature on a 671. I think you're going to get a bunch just from the fuel. I'd like to see what the change is from that. I think his concern probably was vapor lock, getting it out of that range. And so if you change it enough to not have that, I don't think he's cooling it. He's not cooling it down to ambient, obviously. Baby steps. I like it. I need to try that one day. Yeah. A 5.3 LS that's a single turbo car, has a stage 3 BTR turbo cam. I don't know what you mean by left cam bearings. Prime the oil pump, has 40 pounds for oil pressure when cranking, but once hot, it drops to 10. It drops to 10 psi at what idle speed? Did anyone see Oliver got a new project truck? No, I haven't seen it. Have you tested small bore rec port heads? No, I haven't. I just tried to put regular rec port heads on the 5.3 or 4.8. Would cooling E85 and M1 be worth it? I don't think so. One more minute. Where did Sean go? I miss Sean. Sean's probably out doing piston research. Yeah, that's right. I said what I said. Frosty Go beverage. Yeah, look at that. Wow. So question is, how will you pick the winner? Does that looks like a that kind of, I was thinking that looked like a ZL1 Camaro or something. Tony Stewart car, is his number 32? Let's see what it says. This says Torque Twister. I think that they do things that so they don't have to pay royalties on stuff. This one's the side draft. Man, the shiny ones are hard to read. What's this one? Good stuff. No, this one was 32. 32, 44, 333, number 5, which that would almost have to be the Mach 5, but it's not because it's sporting 20s. Are those 20s? No, they're 10s, but I keep them clean. Aaron, you're gonna stream one of mine at your reception, dude. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. And on that note, it is time to go. You guys have a good weekend. It's Saturday. I'm going to try to get this video up so you guys can take a look, and then I will see you guys all tomorrow.